I'm back, and I want to talk about Kanye West. Oh, love Kanye. Um, Obviously, I'm sure you're aware, Jesus is King is out. Along with it, he did an interview, I think with Big Boy. So a lot of clips from that have been circulating as well. I've seen a lot of that posted on Instagram. So today I had to take the time to listen to the interview in its entirety, which, like, literally I was listening to it while I was on the treadmill, and I was just like geeking out because he said so many things that just really resonated. And yeah, I don't really even know how to articulate it. I just thought it was so amazing to see the transformation and to hear someone that's really passionate about transforming his life and just about spreading God's word. So personally, I thought the interview was amazing, and before you judge, I definitely think you should listen to the interview in its entirety, and that might help you sort of understand where he was at mentally and spiritually when he decided to work on this project. So all of that aside, if you have listened to the songs, I'm curious what you guys' thoughts are on it. I've heard sort of like mixed reviews on Instagram. And actually, one of my Instagram friends had posted something yesterday along the lines of he hadn't listened to the album yet and he wasn't planning on it. So I had to reach out and be like, well, why? Because I'm curious. I want to know what people's reasons would be for just not even wanting to give it like the time of day. And essentially what he said was, I think where he was coming from was he didn't feel like Kanye's intentions were pure, that he thought that it was more or less like a marketing strategy, a way and a means to make money off of the name of God. And so I think because of that, he just didn't feel like it was something that he wanted to listen to. But for me personally, I have a totally different take on it. I feel like, all of us are imperfect, and we're, all on our own spiritual path. We've all like made our own mistakes in the past, and we're going to continue to make mistakes in the future. And I really think it's about intention and where someone's heart is when they're, in the process of making something. And I think in this particular case, like, you just cannot fake this level of enthusiasm and intention. Like, I really believe that his heart is in the right place, and he's no theologist, I'm no theologist, but that doesn't mean that we don't have a heart for God and that we aren't really trying to worship him in what we're doing. And I think one of the songs in particular, when I was listening to it the first time around, really spoke to me, because I thought, wow, he's really like speaking to so many of us with what he's saying. Because in the song he talks about, here, let me see if I can find the exact lyrics. Okay, so the track is called I think the track is called Hand On. But anyways, it talks about like attacks coming from Christians, or what are the Christians saying, and how they're going to be the first to like say something negative. And then it makes you feel like no one's for you. That's the general gist of it. I'll post the lyrics on here. But basically, I can totally relate to that, because I feel like so many times people want to judge you just based off of the silliest things, and basically say like, okay, well that discounts you. Like, you can't be a Christian, or you can't speak about your love for God because you're not like beyond reproach. Like, you're flawed, as if we aren't all, every single one of us, sinners and flawed and imperfect Christians. But I mean, I know I've experienced that. I definitely have felt like at times like, oh, I'm not the right messenger. I shouldn't speak out about my faith. I shouldn't say, how much like living a life for God is important to me, because people are going to look at, my jobs and things I've done in the past and say, oh, well, she was a lingerie model. Like, how can she be a Christian? Or just things that to me just don't even relate. It's so judgmental. And like, as a Christian, like that's the first thing that we should know, is that we're not supposed to judge one another. We're all sinners, and just because we've sinned differently than one another, we want to hold somebody to account instead of like minding our own back door. It makes zero sense to me. Show me the perfect messenger then. If there is such a thing as a perfect messenger, show them to me. It doesn't exist. The only perfect person that's ever walked the face of the earth was Jesus Christ himself. Outside of that, the rest of us were born sinners, and thank God that, he sent Jesus to die for us so that we could be redeemed. And I just think it's funny because obviously the Bible is like full of stories of redemption. God doesn't use perfect people because obviously perfect people don't exist. He uses people who are flawed. And that's why I think it's funny that people are sort of like attacking Kanye, like, oh, he's not the right messenger, or the intentions aren't pure. That's just not your place to judge his heart. And I think if you're a Christian, what you should be doing is pray for him. Just pray for him. Like, we're all on a different, an individual, like, spiritual walk. And we all need that prayer, and we all need that support. So if you have any concerns, or you're questioning like motivation or intention, I don't think that's your place to do personally, but, just take that a step farther rather than handle it by, saying, I'm not going to support this project. Pray for him. Just pray that like God continues to work through him, because you never know who might be reached through what he's doing that may never have been reached had he not put out this project, or had he not been out like speaking about this. Because, as he said, like he's been through, in the interview, he talks about like 10 years ago wanting to be more involved in doing things that were for God and all of this. But from the sounds of it, the way that I received the message that he was delivering was that he really was never saved until like recently, that he really only came to accept salvation and really develop that heart for Jesus. Like, it's one thing to know God, but it's another thing to know God. And I think that was the distinction that he was making. And he spoke about some of the more recent projects that he did before Jesus is King. A song maybe like a year ago about hoes. Obviously he has a lot of lyrics like that in the past, and I think, he now realizes that that's not what he wants to be about. And he said something along the lines of like, oh boy, was the devil happy like that day? Like, I've been living my life like serving the devil, more or less. And I just don't know how you could listen to the interview and not be excited for him. Just as a Christian, like, I'm so excited to see how excited he is in the direction that he wants to move in. And I can't do anything but like support that, and want to pray for him, and hope that he's able to, have some like great impact on other people, because he has such a huge platform. The political side of it obviously is a whole nother thing. For me personally, I agree with him on so much. I'm a big Candace Owens supporter. I'm definitely like a conservative libertarian. Thomas Sowell is one of my absolute favorite authors to read. Very well-known, well-respected Black economist who writes about just politics, economics, and how they all, interplay with one another. But he also addresses a lot of the issues in the African American community, and a lot of things that Candace Owens talks about if you follow her at all. So I know that that's kind of a turnoff for some people when it comes to Kanye, but I also think that more times than not, I hate to say it, but I just feel like people aren't looking to other sources for information and then to like sift through and decide what they want to believe. Like, they're literally listening to one news channel, or getting their news off of only social media, which we all know how biased that can be. Like, you have to get your news and your information from multiple sources, and you have to be willing to see it from other sides. You can't just say like, oh, this is the way that it's always been spoon-fed to me, this has to be how it is. Like, that's has been his whole movement since whatever, a year ago, when all of this controversy surrounding him started coming up, as far as like the political pieces of it and being a Trump supporter and all of that. I think, you know, a lot of what he says, and he sort of reiterates in this current interview, is just about the idea that no one culture should feel like they have to vote a specific way just because of a shared culture or shared skin color. You should be able to look at everything and choose for yourself. Like, that's what being free is. You shouldn't feel bullied to think one way or the other just because people that look like you are telling you that that's what you should do. I mean, for me personally, like the whole women's issues and things, I can relate on that, because I get so tired of people making it sound like, well, you're a woman, you should support these issues, or you should feel this way or that way. Like, no, I don't, because those don't align with my values. So, for example, like, I'm not pro-choice. Like, I don't see how you can be Christian and support that. And I don't know how Christians can really look at themselves, or just people in general, and not see that, you know, especially things like talking about third trimester abortions. Like, that is just, I mean, it's insane to me. It's sad, it's sick, it's insane. Like, that is a human life. And to say, oh, well, the woman's body, they should have a choice. Well, you know what? I hate to break it to you, but you had a choice. I don't know if all of us know how people get pregnant, but I can school you on that if you need to know. Like, you have a choice. Before you lay down with someone else, you have a choice whether you're using protection or not. You have a choice whether you're on birth control. You have, for goodness sakes, Plan B. You have all of these other things at this point. I just don't see how you have an excuse. Like, you're either responsible before, or you deal with the consequences after. And so just because you're irresponsible, I don't think that that's a reason to you know, to kill a baby, to kill an innocent baby who God has a plan for. God had a plan for that baby's life, and now the world will never see the greatness that that human life could have done, or the impact they could have had. So it's just sad. Anyways, got off track, but anyways, back to Kanye. So yeah, I just think it's great. I'm excited to see where he's able to take this, and I think there'll be a lot of people like praying for his downfall, wanting to see him stumble, like hoping that he'll have a relapse of sorts, or that he'll go back on what he said about not making secular music anymore, and that type of thing. And you know what? It's a possibility. Like, that could happen, but that doesn't take away from where his heart is, in my opinion, because I know we all stumble. And whether, you know, just speaking to Christians specifically right now, like, if you're a Christian, you know, like, you've fallen flat on your face a million times. Like, thank God that we have a God that is a God of grace, and a God of redemption, and a God that wants to restore us and wants to forgive our sins, and, you know, all of those things. It's like, if we were just trying to do it all on our own, like, we're not going to be able to do it. So I'm going to be praying that he stays on this path and keeps going in this direction, and that he's able to achieve like maximum impact, because I really do believe that God has a plan for him, and in using him in a way to impact positively the lives of others. So yeah, I mean, I guess, you know, to each their own. You can have your own opinion on it, but I think at least before you make your opinion, number one, remember you're not without fault. Like, don't judge him off of things in the past and whatever. Like, give him the opportunity to prove himself going forward. We all need that, and we might need that forgiveness and that grace like time and time again. because again, we're all imperfect. It's about where your heart is, and that's what God is looking at. So yeah, I mean, he might stumble, but I think we should know that that's just the way it goes as humans, and we should support people who are trying to do positive things, and instead of judging, we should, pray for them, be on board with them, root for them, want them to win. But yeah, like I said, I'm going all over the place here. That's what happens when you don't write anything down and you just go for it. Check out the interview. I would almost say check out the interview first. I listened to the album first and then watched the interview. And when I first listened to the album, I was like, this is so great. I love this. Like, a lot of the lyrics, I was like, okay, I feel where he's coming from. Like, I really feel the message that he's trying to deliver here. But, oof, let me tell you, when I watched the interview, and even though Big Boy tried to trip him up a few times and I caught those sneaky little things he was trying to put in there, trying to get him off track, but the interview was just amazing. To me personally, it was amazing. It showed me where his heart was at, and I just thought it was exciting to see someone so excited for God. And I'm telling you, that is the transformative power of God right there. So that's all. Totally want to know what you guys think about all of this. Obviously, if you're not a believer, I feel like I kind of understand if you're going to say that you don't like it, it's trash, some of the things that I've seen on the internet. Like, to be fair, like, I can see why you would think that, because you don't understand, and hopefully, you'll come to a place where it will speak to you, and then you'll be able to understand, and you'll be able to appreciate it. But I wouldn't really expect someone who's a non-believer to get it, unfortunately. But for Christians specifically, I'm definitely curious what your opinions are. Are you for it? Are you against it? And if you're against it, why? Like, do you just think he's not the right messenger? Do you think that there's somebody more perfect than him that could be like a voice or a better voice, I guess? Or what are your reasons? I'm curious. So let me know in the comments below. I want to open up the dialogue and just see where this goes. And yeah, keep it respectful, of course. I always say that. And I look forward to hearing what you guys think.